Trucker Dump for October 7th, 2010. Episode 54. Truckers Get Lost. The Do's and Don'ts of Giving Directions.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources that help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Howdy doody, kids. What's shaking? Todd McCann here. We've all heard stories about some old hick giving directions that say something like, go to the pasture with 3 cows in it and turn right. Well, sometimes I feel like I'm talking to this hick all the time. Let me explain what I mean by that. I present to you, Truckers Get Lost. The do's and don'ts of giving directions. Truck drivers disagree on lots of things, like whether bathing is necessary or not. But they also agree on many things. For example, no driver will argue when I say that the driving directions our companies provide stink worse than fresh tequila vomit. The average trucker will drive 120,000 miles per year, so you'd think we'd have this whole navigation thing down, wouldn't you? Yet we don't. Well, some of us don't. So what seems to be the problem? Well, let's see. First, I should explain that most drivers receive directions to the customer when we receive our load information. Who's responsible for supplying that information? Well, the majority of companies that I work for haven't had a standard. Maybe that's part of the problem. Some companies ask the customers for directions when they book the freight. Other times, they tell the driver to call the customer to get directions. Still other times, I've had dispatchers tell me, hold on while I Google it. Oh boy, this is going to be a hoot. Let me address this Google thing first. While there have been numerous occasions where Google Maps has bailed me out, check out my podcast, Trucking in the Northeast, for that, there have been just as many times when it's gotten me into trouble. Just the other night, I found myself in a quiet residential area in Rhode Island because my company didn't have any directions and the customer was closed on Sunday. Well, the neighborhood was quiet before I got there anyway. The fact is, Google Maps aren't truck-friendly. It doesn't know a truck route from a goat path. It doesn't consider the weight limits of bridges or the heights of overpasses. And it certainly doesn't inform us of hazmat-restricted routes. Like I said, Google has gotten me out of a few pinches by simply providing a map of the area I'm in, but it's anything but perfect for trucks. You may ask, what about GPS? Even regular GPS units won't do the trick. If you want all the information relevant to trucks, you've got to buy a truck-specific unit. However, having used one before, I have to tell you that I wouldn't trust one of those any more than a dad would trust his daughter's date on prom night. I was talking to a driver-trainer the other day who told me he had a student that refused to learn how to read a road map. The trainer said he didn't need it because he was going to get a GPS when he got out of training. First off, this guy would have never made it out of training with me. I would have sat there like a stone-faced gargoyle when he asked me where to go and where to turn. He would have had to learn to read a map or find a new instructor. Why? Because map reading and following directions are essential to a truck driver. What happened to this student next is a perfect example of why. 2 weeks later, the student got his own truck. He called the trainer and asked how to get to a particular shipper. The trainer said, "Where's your GPS?" He replied, I don't have it yet." Frustrated, the trainer said, "Where are you now?" The new driver said, "I'm over at the yard where you dropped me." To which the trainer said, "Look across the street." Oh boy. So back to our problem. How do we get and give quality directions? Well, we can't totally control how our company office people handle directions, but we sometimes have a say in the matter. Many carriers will ask the driver to provide them with the direction to the customer once they've established a good route in. Once they're in the system, they send them out to every driver going there in the future. And herein lies my beef. Many truckers are just as bad at giving directions as Googling non-truckers. So here are some do's and don'ts when supplying directions to your company or any other fellow human being that you don't totally loathe. Do give enough information to be clear. Don't give more information than is needed. Is it really necessary that I know that I'm going to pass a McDonald's, a Wendy's, a Burger King, a Walmart, and a Long John Silver's? Ugh, I'd love to deep fry the drivers who do this. Don't give directions from your starting point. Not everyone going to Pennsylvania is coming from Oklahoma. Frickin' moron. Do start the directions from the nearest interstate. Even if the next driver is coming from a different direction, they can look on a map and see how they need to adjust their route. That is, he can if Mr. Know-It-All can read a map. Do give a compass point off the exit ramp or main road. I can't tell you how many times I've read something like, from I-30, take exit 34 and go right. Great. So if I'm going west, I'll be heading north. If I were heading east, I'll be going south. Or will I? What if the exit is a cloverleaf to a stoplight? Then it's the exact opposite. See what I mean? You can be much clearer by saying, from I-30, take exit 34 and go south. Don't give the direction you're going on the interstate unless it's relevant. For instance, if an exit can only be accessed when going westbound, be sure to say something like, from I-44 west, take exit 15, Duquesne and Joplin. No access from I-44 east. Do give an exit number and the name of the town or street on the exit sign. If you're not certain of the exit number coming from the other direction, say, from I-44 west, take exit 15, Duquesne, Joplin. Unsure of exit number from eastbound. Do use the terms right and left once you got your bearing off the main road. It sounds too confusing when you say, turn south at the exit ramp, go east on Naval Drive, north on Belly Dancing Lane, and west on Belly Button Circle. Don't give distances off the main road if it's fairly close. However, if your next turn is 6 miles down the road, say so. That way the driver isn't slowing down at every intersection for the next 6 miles. And all those four-wheelers can refrain from cussing us for 6 miles. Do provide street names. Take the second left just doesn't cut it. How do you know a new street or two hasn't gone in? Take a left on Porta Potty Road is much more precise. Don't use landmarks that could change. Providing landmarks can be good in the right circumstances. For instance, railroad tracks, bridges, or the city hall rarely change, but Hardee's, stoplights, and gas stations do. Not long ago, I got directions that said, turn east onto Route 126 and turn right at the Exxon station. I happen to remember the customer, which was fortunate since the station had recently turned to a Phillips 66. Don't be too frugal with your wording. In-cab satellite systems have been in use since the mid-90s, so truckers have been doing this whole text shortening thing a lot longer than you four-wheeling punks. Satellite systems usually charge by the character, so truckers were encouraged to use as many abbreviations as possible. Substitutions as the number 2 and the symbol for number were used in place of the words to and number. I once got directions that said, go 4 mile and the customer is on the right. I went 4 miles. Whoever had typed the directions had substituted the number 4 for the word for, F-O-R. Don't do that. U-turns in a truck just flat out suck. Sometimes the directions we get are perfect. Those have been sent in by yours truly. You're welcome. Sometimes the directions that we receive aren't wrong, they're just extremely vague. One is just as bad as the other. When you're driving a 70-plus foot vehicle, the last thing you need to do is get lost. So here's how I plan to solve this problem. As soon as someone is willing to give me $1 million, a computer programming whiz, and a list of every business in America, I'll get started making a database that carriers can subscribe to. On second thought, that sounds like an awful lot of work. Let's say we drivers just pull our heads out of our tailpipes and use some common sense when we're sending in those directions to our companies. And any dispatcher who gives me directions from Google should be coated with barbecue sauce and left in a cannibal-infested desert.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Alrighty, today's feedback is on the one about lunar driving. Got a couple of the usual suspects and some new faces, so welcome. Helmet or Heels says, Mr. Lunar, you really need to give up trucking and write a book. Another enjoyable and educational blog post. Wow, you know, Helmet or Heels, with all my spare time out here, I guess I could still drive and use my extra time to write a book. Then again, my fingers are already sore from so much typing in my spare time the last few years. Lisa Nowak says, If it's any consolation, the four-wheelers who can't figure out how to merge before they get to the giant flashing arrow are annoying to other four-wheelers too. The only difference is we can't fantasize about crushing them beneath our wheels. Oh, that's funny. How'd you know that we fantasize about doing stuff like that? Are you psychic? Funny comment. Thanks for the laugh. She wrote back and said, well, as a former stock car racer, I have to admit I do sometimes fantasize about biffing them into the center divider. Unfortunately, society and my insurance company tends to frown on that one. Funny stuff there. Next is a new person from Rose, and I'm not even going to attempt your last name because I will butcher it beyond repair. She writes, I don't know much about trucks and driving them, but you sure are witty at writing about it. I think I'll add your blog to my blog. Sweet. Well, thanks for the kind words, Rose. Are you aware that someone has named a flower after you? I appreciate you consider linking to my blog. I would be most appreciative of it. And sorry for that horrible joke. That's just pathetic. Wow, people. Sorry about all the noise in this one. If you can hear it in the background, don't know if you can or not, but I'm fairly close to O'Hare Airport in Chicago. Apparently all the planes have just started flying. And also the receiver just opened up, so I got a bunch of trucks moving. I'm going to try to finish this up as fast as I can. Elizabeth Miles says, I'm going to send this to an artist friend who drives long haul and hates it. Your blog may give him some perspective. Well, Beth, I hope the article accomplishes your goal for your friend. Sorry to hear that he hates long haul trucking, but I definitely know where he's coming from. I feel it myself quite often. Thanks for stopping by and leaving a comment. Tracy Lynn says, another great post. Keep 'em coming. Oh, you may want to mention there's less traffic. Oh, crap. Did I forget to mention that? Thanks for the reminder, Tracy. Patricia Powers, who's also Love 18 Wheels on Twitter, says, trucking is exactly the way you laid it out. More of the motoring public should read this blog and it will give them quite a bit of insight as to just what trucking involves. Well, I agree entirely with that, of course. Everyone should read my blog. Duh. Anyway, goes on to say, the public is largely clueless about what it takes to be a trucker. Most of the public glamorizes trucking. They think about all the traveling we do and how much fun that sounds. They don't realize what we have to go through and to put up with in this profession. Well, Miss Patty, I couldn't have said it better myself. Every time someone finds out that I drive a truck for a living, they say, that sounds like fun. I'm like, do they have baked potatoes on your planet? So thanks to you all for leaving your comments and your thoughts. I always appreciate the ones that stroke my ego. Well, if you want to leave a comment of your own, I really would appreciate it if you did. I love getting them. And here's how. So, what have I missed? Or do I have it wrong altogether? Wouldn't be the first time I was wrong. How would you improve the system of getting directions? Share your thoughts by typing Truckers Get Lost into the nifty search bar at abouttruckdriving.com and leaving your comments there. I can be reached by email at truckerdump@gmail.com. Or if you prefer to speak in short sentences, shoot a tweet to @ToddMcCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Please pass this post along to your friends. Maybe that's why people drive like idiots all the time. Maybe they're just lost due to bad directions. Who knows? So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way.